This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
Okay, well, at the end of the previous session, I left with, as you see on the screen here, example 7 to have a go at. So let's see how you fared in relation to that, and I'll talk you through the answer to it. Right, we had to compute the adjusted trading profit using the normal accruals basis and also then using the cash basis. But we had to assemble all of the information from what we were told. Right, we know what the accounting period is here. Our accounting period for the year to 31st of May 17. What are we told? Sales for the period were £61,000. Now, using the traditional basis, therefore, we don't care about how much of that was still owed, what the debtors, the receivables position was. Sales, 61,000. We do get involved with the inventory, because at the end of the period, we need to know what that closing stock inventory is, because we'll need to work out cost of sales. Purchases and expenses we need to know, and again, they're not bothered on the normal basis about how much of that is still owed, just what the figure was, 29,000. So, in working out, therefore, your gross profit, you have sales of 61,000 and cost of sales that will be the purchases and expenses of 29,000 less your closing stock, which is said to be 1,800. So your cost of sales, 29,000 minus 1,800, presumably therefore 27,200, and we take it away. And again, if we look quickly at the answers, we will see there is your revenue figure, the sales, there's your cost of sales, your purchases and expenses less the closing stock, and thus you get a gross profit, from which we then need to deduct the expenses as they would be for taxation purposes. So let's just go back to the information in the question, and what are we told? We're told that on June the 1st there, 2016, Adam purchased equipment for use within the trade, costing £8,000. Under the normal basis, we're now therefore talking about capital allowances. What capital allowances would you be entitled to on such equipment purchased in this first year of trading? That, of course, is well within your AIA limit, so 100% AIA would be given. We've also got, within the same basis period, a motor car, wouldn't you know it'd have to be a car, costing £12,000 with CO2 emissions of 122 grams. Now, that's the first important issue as regards what we'll be claiming in the form of capital allowances on that particular car, the CO2 emissions. With CO2 emissions such as we see there, no private, are we told? Yes. Oh yes, Adam's got some private use, but with the CO2 emissions at 122, we'd be talking about an 18% per annum writing down allowance being available to us. The further problem, Adam uses the car 40% for private use, therefore 60% business use, and it's that figure that we would restrict in relation to the available capital allowances. We're also told about the motor expenses for the period, were 3,600, and we drove a total of 10,000 miles. We know, of course, Adam uses the car 40% for private use, 60% is business use, so times 60%, we'll need this later, would be 6,000 business miles. But so far as your adjustment of profit is concerned, we'll allow the 60% business use component. Let's just see how that manifested itself in our answer. Our motor expenses, we were told 3,600, limited to the business use element 60%. That therefore gives us £2,160. At least I hope that's the correct calculation. Capital allowances as regards the asset purchased, 8,000, there was your AIA. 100% allowance, £8,000. On the car, 12,000. It was a normal CO2 emissions between 76 and 130 grams per kilometre. So 18% writing down allowance, but restricted to 60%. It was, of course, the opening period, so we'd have to think about, do we get a full year's worth of writing down allowance? Yes, we did, because the opening period just also happened to be a full 12-month period. So it's 12 months worth of writing down allowance that is available here. So 8,000 plus 18% of 12,000 restricted to 60%. Hopefully, again, do check through the numbers there, but that gives us 9296. Take it away and you've got yourself your adjusted trading profit of the business using the normal accruals system of accounting. And we had to compare that with what should be a simplified receipts basis. So, as we were told in the question, sales were 61,000, but of that we hadn't yet received £4,000. We got receivables debtors of 4,000. So the receipts figure, £57,000. Of your purchases and expenses, £2,000 were still to be paid, so 27,000 were the payment. Receipts, payments there. In relation to the equipment purchased, when you buy capital assets there, other than cars, equipment, when you pay for it, you get tax relief. When it's sold, that will go through as a receipt there. So the 8,000 is an allowable deduction. But on the motor expenses, all we do, work out the business miles. We've already done that. It was 6,000 business miles. 6,000 is less than 10,000. Therefore, the 45 pence per mile rate applies to what is 6,000 miles. That, therefore, should be 2,700. So you look at what you had to do to work out the adjusted trading profit under the receipts basis, the cash basis here. What money came in from your sales, what money went out on your payables and expenses, what money went out in relation to assets purchased other than cars, and on cars, what's the business mileage? And if that figure, as here, is less than 10,000 business miles, times 45p. Simple, easy calculations. Again, therefore, a bonus little, again, benefit for these small unincorporated traders to reduce their costs. Sadly, that means that they might not be paying us, the accountant, so much, but again, you've got to expect it's actually a perfectly fine and perfectly reasonable thing to do. So, good for HMRC. Let's go back to your notes, as there's just one final area to deal with in relation to them, and that we've just seen what is a flat rate expense allowance in relation to cars and the business mileage, the 45p stroke 25p per mile rates. There's going to be, in this final paragraph of information, an issue about certain other expenditure where there's a private stroke business use issue. Right. Before we get on to that, first thing that we're told here, if you have a trading loss that arises. So again, if you have a trading loss, so you'd have more payments there than receipts, then under the cash basis, we're quite limited. In fact, we're very limited in terms of how relief will be given for that loss. And the only relief available is for the trader to carry forward the loss to set off against future trading profits of the same trade. We've not yet dealt with it, but when you come to the next chapter, chapter 7, that deals with trading losses, you'll discover there that under the normal system of accounting and therefore determining a tax-adjusted trading profit, if that figure is a loss, there's a variety of different loss reliefs and rather more generous loss reliefs that are available. So if that's happening, if you've got losses, and it may also be, of course, most likely in the early years of a new business, then that might be an important consideration in deciding, do you or don't you actually want to go for the simplified cash basis. So there's a note about that there that, again, you can read through. Now the new bit in terms of this idea of another flat rate allowance to simplify the treatment of an issue where there's a business stroke private use division. Premises used as both home and business, such as a small hotel, guest house, bed and breakfast there, or even public house. So what may happen is that you live in a property and you rent rooms out in that property, that it's either small hotel, guest house, bed and breakfast as they're known in this country. Again, B&Bs, you've probably heard wherever you are of Airbnb there. B&B, bed and breakfast as it is known. Or public houses, again, if you live in a property that is also used in the business, then in terms of this type of issue, we've got a business private use issue on certain expenses that would pertain to the overall property and to your living within that property. So what are they and what is the issue? Premises used as both home and business, we've got the examples there, can elect, so it's your call, the taxpayer, can elect for a flat rate private use adjustment to apply under the cash basis in respect of private use of the property. For such expenses, these are the main ones you would see: food and heat and light. So heat and light's an obvious one. Food is another one if you're talking about, again, something like a small hotel, guest house, bed and breakfast there. And rather than trying to work out, so exactly what bit of heat and light expenditure, what little bit of the food and drinks expenditure relates to private use by the individual there, and what is business, rather than doing that, we can go with a flat rate add back. If we didn't do this, if we just stick with the normal rules, you'd have to analyse every item of expense that had been debited in your accounts and add back any specific private use component. Whereas with this one, now we've got our relevant flat rate will be provided in the exam question, and all we've got to do is to then apply that as an add back. Now, note that this is an add back, not a deduction. So we're working out what the private use adjustment will be. It's a flat rate. They'll give you the figure that you need in the exam question. They in reality are based on the number of occupants. For example, if the property had one occupant, the add back would be £350 a month, or £4,200 per annum there. And for two occupants, it would be £6,000 per annum, £500 per month. The flat rate add back does not include other property expenses such as rent or loan interest payments. So these are the specific ones to which it relates. Again, if this were applicable in an exam, you will be clearly told. Where the cash basis applies, you'll be told whether the cash basis applies, then you will assume that the flat rate expense allowances are in force. The flat rate expense rules, they are in force. So you do it that way. Let's just quickly see how this would work in relation to our final example here, example 8. How does this work? Eve, a single lady. So again, single lady, no, I won't go there. So you need to know the number of occupants, and based on the number of occupants, remember we were told up here, you would be given this information in the question, £4,200 per annum, £350 per month for a single occupant. Runs a small guest house. Yeah, this is the type of business that we're talking about, where we've got to do this split, in which she lives and prepares accounts to 5th of April each year. Year ended April the 5th, 17. Trading profit before any private use adjustment. So the trading profit before private use, 23,000. So in getting that 23,000, we've deducted all of these expenses, the food, the heat and light, irrespective of the fact that here Eve may have had personal consumption in relation to some element of those expense costs. The total cost for the food, heating and lighting charge for this period amounted to £14,000. She obviously eats well, or likes to keep the lights on. Show how the total cost of food and heat and light may be dealt with for tax purposes, and calculate Eve's adjusted trading profit, assuming the election for the private use adjustment there has been made. Yeah, again, if it's cash basis that you're being used, you'll also be told that you use these flat rate allowances. Now here there are basically two choices that will apply. That if we ignore the new rules, the election that is available, what would have to happen is an analysis of that £14,000 would need to be done. we would have to determine how much is private use by Eve, the proprietor, and that would be added back to the 23,000. So you have 23,000 plus the add back, and the add back would be based on the private use. That would be a lot of work to establish what is that private use as compared to the total expenditure incurred. The other and much easier, quick and easier way of dealing with it is to use here the agreed flat rate for the add back, which is for a single occupant £4,200 per annum. So in which case it will be 23,000 plus 4,200. Again, this is for the full year there. So 27,200 would be the tax adjusted trading profit. Again, flat rate scheme. If it's to be used, you'll be told that it's the cash base. You will be told, sorry, that the cash basis applies. If the cash basis applies, you assume that the flat rate schemes therefore will also apply, and you use them as we have done in these particular examples 7 and 8. Okay, have a look through the answers therefore to the examples that we've done. Make sure that you are happy with them, and that completes therefore, let me just check, make sure it does, that completes therefore, yes indeed, this particular chapter. What we've seen now in relation to the exercises so far on the unincorporated trader, Chapter 4, work out the adjusted trading profit. Chapter 5, compute the capital allowances and deduct from the adjusted profit to give you the tax adjusted trading profit. Chapter 6, use the tax adjusted trading profit using your relevant bases of assessment to determine what will be assessed in each tax year of assessment from the very first through to the very final tax year. We've also seen more latterly that instead of using the accruals basis to determine what is the profit, and again with your normal tax adjustments of profit taking place, we can simplify it and work not on accruals but on a receipts and payments basis. If that were to apply, then we've got these flat rate schemes in operation that we need to know how to use, but for which the relevant information that you need is going to be provided to you. You simply need to be aware of the rule and how that works. But we've not finished with the unincorporated trader, because in our next chapter together, chapter 7, we look at the situation where when you do your adjustment of profits, when you compute and deduct capital allowances, the figure that you end up with is not a tax adjusted trading profit. It is, of course, a tax adjusted trading loss. And where that happens, the assessment will never be a negative, a bracketed figure. It will be nil assessment, and we separately have to consider what are the loss reliefs available and maybe suggest which of those loss reliefs would be best suited for your particular taxpayer client. After chapter 7, chapter 8 looks at partnerships, where everything we've done up until now is still the same, in as much as for the partnership you do the adjustment of profits. For the partnership you compute and deduct capital allowances. You get a tax adjusted trading profit or loss of the partnership, and all that then needs to happen is we need to divide that profit or loss between the partners, because in tax we don't tax the partnership. It is each partner within the partnership that is taxed on their share of the adjusted trading profit, or when it comes to loss reliefs, given relief for their share of the adjusted trading loss. So those two chapters still await us there, therefore. I look forward to seeing you next time.